21 Indian states plunged into darkness last week as the northern, northeastern and eastern grids collapsed. While power was restored within the day, India's abysmal infrastructure created headlines around the world. While an embarrassed government put up a brave defense, the recent grid failure is a mere symptom of the chronic malaise facing India's power sector. While the blame game continues on what caused the collapse, the reality is every day in most states demand outstrips supply. Large parts of rural India are still powerless. Generation has fallen short of targets year after year. State discoms are virtually bankrupt and companies are starved of fuel. Will the grid collapse shock the state into action finally and push ahead the much needed reforms? To discuss the roadmap for powering India, we've got with us from GVK, Sanjay Reddy, Chairman of CII Southern Regional Council and the Vice Chairman of GVK Power and Infrastructure. Also with us, Anil Saidana, Chairman of CII National Committee on Power and Managing Director of Tata Power, and Sunand Sharma, member of CII's National Committee on Power and the country president for Alstom India. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Sanjay, let me start by asking you, the usual blame game has started on what really led to the collapse that we saw twice over 24 hours last week. And the fact of the matter is that whether it is following the grid discipline or whether it is penalties that haven't actually acted as deterrents, this is, as I pointed out, a mere symptom of a chronic malaise facing this sector.
Yes, Shireen, I think you've captured it in your first statement very, very well. I mean, the problem is not only in distribution, transmission and generation. And broadly, my view is that, one has to have a comprehensive look at the power sector and to come up with a way forward with a short-term, medium-term and long-term plan.
But Sanjay, let's talk about what we're seeing happen as far as generation is concerned. Year after year, we failed to meet our targets. The former Power Minister, Sushil Kumar Shinde, on his way out, defended the government saying that we added 20,000 megawatts in capacity in 1 year compared to what we've done in any other plan. I mean, that's hardly something to boast about given the fact that China outstrips us 6 times annually every single year.
Yeah, I think in the last few years, one thing which has happened maybe in the last 3 to 5 years, the amount of investment that has started on a cumulative basis has been phenomenal. But obviously without enough planning on some of the key areas, including fuel, land, environment, etc. And so I think these problems surfaced when power plants started going into generation. And I think in my view, on the generation side, while there are a lot of problems in every sector, I think one has to focus primarily in terms of a long-term energy policy. If I recollect, the last time the country really had a long-term energy policy was in the year 2000 or 2001. So we really need to look at a long-term integrated energy policy and energy security plan.
All of these matters are extremely well established, Shireen. I think one of the things which needs deep focus is the fact that we have multiplicity of decision making. Take us in manufacturing, for example, being encouraged hugely by the planning process. Not only us, but our competitors and others have all made vast investments across India in anticipation of a planning which would require about 25 to 30,000 megawatts of new power plants to be installed every year. So as you started by saying that generation is already there, but then if no one anticipated the fact that there would be such a huge gap in the supply of coal or gas, or that the low-hanging fruit of hydro would not become available because of issues which rose late in the day, such as environmental clearances and so on. So the entire thing is symptomatic of a lack of a very high-level coordination, because we in the private enterprise cannot be the ones to encourage government internally from department to department to speak with each other and remain coordinated. The integrated policy is actually on record.
On paper it may be there, but in reality it's a very different situation. Sanjay, one of the issues that Sunand raised, and which is perhaps one of the most critical issues facing the sector at this point in time, is the lack of clarity as far as fuel is concerned. Whether it's coal, whether it's gas, we don't know where the fuel is going to come from. It becomes a battle between the coal ministry and the power ministry. Then the Prime Minister's office steps in. It becomes a battle between the oil ministry and the power ministry. Then the Prime Minister's office steps in. There is still no clarity on what happens as far as fuel supply is concerned, and most plants running at below capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a structural problem. I mean, I always saw this as an issue because in India, as you know, the different ministries, and I don't know whether really this can be solved, but each ministry focuses on its own area. So one has to really think through how do we make decisions which are able to address everything in a comprehensive manner. I must say that about 4 months, 5 months ago, when we as Association of Power Producers approached the Prime Minister, he was extremely positive, very emphatic that he will put his entire team to find solutions.
Yeah, but where does that take us, Sanjay? That doesn't take us very far, because then there is an empowered group of ministers that will meet. It hasn't met yet. It hasn't been scheduled to meet yet. Then there is the larger issue of what you actually do with gas prices. Should it be market aligned? Should it not be market aligned? Each ministry has its own view. The suppliers of gas have their own view. So we're still stuck in the middle of all of this, and there's actually been no action that's been taken despite those several meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a complex issue, Shireen. Apart from the fact that we have, of course, splintered ministries, we also have an issue that it's a subject which is shared both by the state and the center. Then politics comes into play as to who's governing the state, who's governing the center. Today we have a problem, and I agree that we have to find a solution.
Right.
But I'm more concerned that if we don't continue our path in terms of finding ways to continue to push investment in this sector, maybe we'll end up in a much more serious situation in 2 to 3 years from now.
Anil Sardana, let me bring you in here, because you have a target at Tata Power of generating 26,000 megawatts of capacity, and you're by 2020, and you're saying that you're going to be unable to deliver on that because of the lack of coal availability, and that is forcing you to look outside of India. Is that going to be now a large part of the solution, because you're not being able to untangle what Sanjay is saying are regulatory issues, are policy issues in India? Companies are going to be forced to look outside.
Certainly, that's one of the challenges that the companies are certainly going to embrace. The trouble today that we have is of a larger dimension. We need to worry about the energy security that the country needs to resolve. You talked about fuel, and Sanjay mentioned about the fact that the coal issues are not going to be solved overnight, the mines can't be dug up overnight, which is true. But I think we have a larger issue here at hand. It's important that the country must decide what security they will have over a period of time, what fuel mix they will use. We already have a complexity in terms of this being a concurrent issue, and therefore the states look at it more myopically. But the center must come out with a detailed policy in terms of what kind of mix would they look at in terms of 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years horizon.
Mr. Sardana, let me ask you, because one of the other big problems that this sector is faced with is the virtually bankrupt DISCOMs. Once again, we're hearing from the government that they're going to be putting together a restructuring package as far as DISCOMs are concerned. Some states are okay with it, some states are not on board with it. The Power Minister, in an interview with me, said that perhaps by the end of August, the Cabinet will actually clear another restructuring package for DISCOMs. But the perennial problems that this sector is faced with haven't been dealt with. So is this like throwing good money after bad?
Completely. I endorse your viewpoint. Delhi got into the PPP model 10 years back. 2002 is when they started that. Today, the results are there to be seen. The sad part is, I don't see the reason why the government needs to be in this business. In fact, it's just because of the vested interest that the whole thing is moving around in circles. Otherwise, the government should actually get into the PPP mode and be at the driver's seat to actually demand performance. It's completely unfathomable as to why the government should be in this kind of a business. I mean, I've seen numerous occasions in which, in the hinterland, in the places, when you can't manage your peak supply, you disconnect customers. Now, is this the way in this present age? The whole world has moved into reliable electricity. People are talking about smart grid. That's merely a fashion statement in India. How you manage smart grid in India?
No, a lot of things have become a fashion statement. In fact, after the grid collapse, islanding is once again become the fashion statement, with states like Delhi saying that why can't we go for islanding as Bombay did. But I'll get to that in just a bit. Sunand, since let's be realistic. An integrated energy policy, if the government were to go ahead and actually be able to translate that not just on paper but in reality, great. But in the short term now, since the Power Ministry at least seems to be suggesting that it wants to do business, it wants to attract private investment, what do you think are those priorities that need to be addressed?
This subject of electricity needs to be understood, as I support Anil, as a matter of national security, not just in terms of the fact that you need to have electricity for every other action of life, but the fact that if you're aiming at growth rates which are being suggested by government on a continuous basis, and this year when you look at the factor of drought having caused, and the Planning Commission Deputy Chairman said, may drop the growth rate even further, think it through. What you have, as I said earlier, is the symptom that you have a very long-term business in the form of electricity which requires anywhere from between 48 to 84 months to install anything like a generation plant, depending on the fuel, to a very short-term fix on a band-aid basis.
Absolutely, and then you've got to deal with at least a 15-month delay, which is the average delay that we see as far as power plants are concerned in this country.
Sure, and insofar as what he said, what Anil said about islanding, or what you said about islanding, and Anil mentioned about discounts, this is not the first year this is being discussed. It's a matter very serious. I mean, why is electricity not treated like any other commodity? And why is the theft of electricity not treated like the theft of any other commodity? I mean, it's so obvious, and the Electricity Act has been in position since 2003. Special magisterial powers are available. Action should be taken, and again in support of Anil, wherever it has been implemented, and he pointed out the situation in Delhi. A, I'm a resident here, and B, the results speak for themselves. That is a low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest thing to implement, and the messages are all over the place. The question is really implementing that which you already know requires to be implemented, and implementing firmly and quickly.
Well, on that note, we'll take a quick break, but when we return, we'll try and find answers to powering India. Welcome back. You're watching a CNBC TV 18 CII special on powering India, the road ahead for the crucial power sector. Sanjay, I want to talk to you about your plans as well, because like Tata Power, which is looking outside of India, you've decided to look at it outside of India as well. You're spending a substantial amount of money in Australia. Some part of that coal will be moved back to India for GVK's infrastructure and power projects. But, is this going to be what we're going to be faced with? More and more companies actually looking outside of India, because in the short term, there doesn't seem to be solutions to the problems of fuel supply.
Yes, Shireen. I think, our company faced an issue in 2006 when we invested a lot of money to set up 1,000 megawatts of gas projects. And unfortunately, the GAIL couldn't supply enough gas, and we were stranded for 3 years. That taught us a lesson, and we said that we have to have the ability to control our own, lifeline as far as fuel is concerned. And we started seriously looking all over the world. And that's when we identified Australia, because of its political risk, better political risk, and huge assets that are available. And we've invested there, and we are very confident that once that project takes off, then we will be able to expand significantly. But I think the short-term fix, the only thing that I can think of is there is fortunately enough stranded capacity in the country. If you add it up, it is significant. It is maybe 25,000-30,000 megawatts of gas-based projects and coal-based projects. I think the government has a dilemma in terms of, I think they have to think about whether they can import LNG and imported coal to be able to address some of that. All of it will not be able to address it because of infrastructure bottlenecks in terms of the immediate future. Now the issue comes, okay, there is a cost issue. And if you actually see on the ground, and I've been told this repeatedly, that consumers don't mind paying more as long as it is quality power and they are certain it will get it.
It's a political problem, and we don't seem to have the political courage to go down that road. We're seeing year after year, for decades, states not actually moving as far as tariffs are concerned. Finally, maybe a decade later, they'll move 5%, 10%, Jharkhand moving 15% day before yesterday, after decades.
Exactly. But I'm not talking about moving the tariff for everybody, because, it's okay for us to wish everything, but it's not easy. But at least if you say that, okay, if you're willing to import and at least bridge the gap of say 10,000 megawatts or 15,000 megawatts as a policy, as a country,
Yeah.
if we are able to take a decision under the guidance of the Prime Minister and all the Chief Ministers, and whoever wants to pay, at least, that can be provided to them. At least partly it will solve the problem.
Sure,
I'm not saying it will solve it fully.
Since you touched on the topic of imported, fuel, let me go across to Anil Sardana. Anil Sardana, the UMPPs in this country are now facing an uncertain future once again because of imported coal, and the Indonesian government has changed its policy, and now corporates are looking at the Indian government saying, hey, provide us a cushion. So, where do we go from here? On one hand, Sanjay is saying consumers are willing to pay if we actually were to import coal and pass on that, but clearly industry is not willing to take that on.
No, I think, Shireen, this is completely a wrong presentation of this whole case. UMPP is a great success. You have such a large capacity that you need for the country. Imagine 4,000 megawatt at Mundra is going to support 2% of India's population. And that too at a price point which is amazing. 90 paisa is the fixed price of Mundra. Can you source power more competitive than this? Can you have a generation capacity which is as green as what you get out of supercritical boilers installed there? It's an amazing experiment. I think it's a great thing that's happening.
But
now, if at all,
companies are going back to the government saying provide us a cushion because the rules have changed elsewhere.
So I'm making that point to say, if the coal prices today have changed, and if 65 paisa gets added to Mundra's cost, it will be still one of the most competitive power that the country can source. You just heard what Sanjay mentioned, the fact that today people are wasting oil. They're using DG sets with 14, 15 rupees per unit. Mundra with that 65 paisa addition is going to be still 3 rupees 10 paisa. Now if it's going to be 3 rupees power that you need and you get so much for the national reconstruction, I don't know what's the issue.
But you come back to the point that government should subsidize companies like yours.
No, I'm only saying it's not subsidized. It's a simple issue of saying over a 25-year cycle, the coal prices will cyclically move. And therefore today if the coal prices have gone up, compensate that, because it's not the companies which change that. Or you have enough diplomatic power to make sure that Indonesia follows the contracts that were entered into. Okay. I think that's a point which has to be understood. Either the political diplomacy has to be a point where we make other country accept that the contracts which were entered to are honored, or else we quickly fall in line.
But
and
countries,
in fact,
countries
Shireen,
do change the rules of the game midway.
Can I make just...
Sure, go ahead.
Exactly. Now you see the country like India, we added 26% taxation on our own captive mining. And if we can do that and that's made pass through, then why do you stop Indonesia for changing rules? If they've changed rules, we should quickly understand that there is a change in law, get that into stride and make sure that the standard is set.
But Anil Sardana, as of now the government
needs capacity.
As of now the government is saying we're not going to provide you a cushion. We cannot bear the burden of what the Indonesian government has done. In that context, till the time that perhaps they were to be persuaded by your argument and make some changes, what happens to these UMPPs? Do they then become financially unviable?
No, but at the same time we are generating. 2 of the units are already on the grid, the others are all there ahead of schedule to come onto the bar. We are still contributing to the country's needs. It's important for the country to take a position in regard to what we are saying, and if the decisions can be taken faster, that helps the standard capacity to come back.
If we don't actually see any of these reforms being taken forward, if we don't see the government moving fast as far as these crucial decisions are concerned, will private investment suffer? Is private investment going to stay out of the power sector? Because the government clearly needs you to pitch in. That's part of their big 12th five-year plan as far as the infrastructure space is concerned.
The situation is, Shireen, it's beyond private sector decision making. It has gone to the stage where banks who actually finance the project 70-80% of the amount have become very sensitive to these issues, and the minute when you go and meet the chairmen of banks, before you open and you use the P word, I think, pretty much the answer is no. And so it's become extremely difficult for us as industry to convince banks to be able to lend to the power sector. So I think they are looking more than us. We as entrepreneurs take risk, and yes, if we see an opportunity, we may still go after it as long as we see the message is right, intent is good, and we can see some action on the ground.
Okay.
Maybe not all of it. But the banks have become very, very wary.
Wrap-up comments from all three gentlemen. Sanjay, top three priorities. I know from Veerappa Moily he's going to be calling all of you in for a meeting, which is what he told me. So what is your top three demands going to be?
Our demands are going to be focus on some immediate solution, which is providing fuel to stranded capacities. How to address the economic issue in terms of cost. I think we have to find a way, whoever is willing to pay, let them buy it. That is one. Secondly, as I said, stop the clock and start thinking about what the next medium-term, long-term issues are. Focus on basically the fuel security and financial security of the sector.
Very straightforward. These two grid failures were a very, very important wake-up call. Please go ahead and implement that which you already have without any waste of time. Ensure that laws, rules and powers are properly implemented.
I would say implement distribution reform. That's foremost. Make sure that the consumer gets the benefit of seeing what the world does on the electricity side. That's first and foremost. Number two, for projects, the clearances entail some 60 steps. It takes close to about 5 to 7 years to establish a project from the day you conceptualize that.
Right.
So besides settling the fuel issues, etc., make sure that the clearances are done through a single window and people are not made to move from one window to the other. It becomes more predictable.
Right.
It's clearly time bound. That must be established.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid, we've had this conversation several times in the past. There's nothing new in the discussion that we've just had. The question now is of implementation. The question now is of political courage, political will and political support. Will New Delhi listen this time around? The Power Minister has promised that he will expedite clearances, that he will take up these matters on a war footing. More power to him if he were to actually be able to pull that off. But Anil Sardana, Sanjay Reddy and Sudhan Sharma, appreciate you joining us here on the CNBC TV 18 special. From all of us here, goodbye and many thanks for watching.